المقرر الأممي المعني بشؤون اللاجئين الروهينغا في بنغلادش وأيضا في ميانمار السيد توم أندروز أنت معنا من فيرجينيا مباشرة. أهلا بك في أرم نيوز. دعني أبدأ من آخر مستجدات مما يجري في تلك الأزمة. اليوم يتعرض اللاجئون الروهينغا في بنغلادش لأسوأ الظروف وأيضا يعيشون أزمة حقيقية في ولاية راخين في ميانمار. هل يمكن أن تضعنا في البداية بتفاصيل ما يجري في راخين؟
Well, first of all, Bangladesh opened their arms and hearts to the people of the Rohingya coming from Myanmar uh, after they faced horrific conditions, genocidal attacks by the Myanmar military back in 2017. So that's really important to say at the outset. But now we have nearly 1 million people, Rohingya people, in these camps in Bangladesh. And they're facing extremely harsh conditions. They don't have enough food to eat. They're not able to earn a living. They're totally dependent upon charitable contributions. Their children have very limited access to education. So conditions there are difficult. They're harsh, and conditions in Myanmar are even worse because the Rohingya in Myanmar, over 600,000, are now faced between a rock and a hard place. They're faced between the conflict in Rakhine State, between junta forces and the Arakan army, and it's horrific. And now, on top of everything, those who are in Rakhine State, Rohingya, are facing forced recruitment by the Myanmar military. So just think about this. The very forces that committed genocide against your people are now forcing you as a young person to join their forces, to be used as human shields. It is just a horrific situation that's underway in Rakhine State to the Rohingya right now, and of course, very difficult conditions that they face in Bangladesh. It's inadequate. There has not been a convening of a Security Council to address this crisis. There has been very limited action, and we need to, as an international community and as a United Nations in particular, we need to step up and apply greater pressure on the military junta, particularly in light of these horrific conditions that they're putting the Rohingya through in Rakhine State. It's a horrible situation, and the UN, to answer your question directly, the UN is doing little to nothing.
سيد توم، في خطتها السنوية للاستجابة للأزمة ناشدت المنظمة الأممية توفير أكثر من 800 مليون دولار لتوفير الغذاء والمساعدات للروهينجا والمجتمعات المضيفة أي بنغلاديش. إذا أردنا أن نقول إذا ما تم توفير هذا المبلغ ما الذي سيحصل؟ ما هي النتيجة إذن على أوضاع اللاجئين الروهينجا؟
Catastrophe. Listen, right now for the 224 joint response plan, only 2 countries have contributed. Of the $852 million that you mentioned, only 3.4 million out of 852 have been committed. The United States providing actually a little over that, 4.4. So it's 3.4 million have been provided by the United States, and just under a million by Germany. That's it. That's it for 2024. Mm-hmm. Now, in 2023, we saw of the $875 million in that joint response plan, 50% ended up being funded at the end of the year. Before that, in 2022, it was 69.3. So we've gone from 69.3% to 50%. To now it is a fraction of 1% in 2024. Mm-hmm. So that leads to great human suffering.
إذا بناء على ما تقول فيمكن القول أن اللاجئين الروهينجا سيواجهون المجاعة أم ماذا؟
We know that they're facing acute malnutrition. We know that, and this is the important thing. we're talking about significant numbers of children who do not have enough to eat. And when a child suffers from malnutrition, it means that they could be permanently damaged, permanently damaged.
مهم.
And that's what's happening to Rohingya children in these camps. We know that significant numbers have stunted growth because of malnutrition. We know that breastfeeding women, pregnant women, are anemic because they're not getting enough food, the right kind of food. So there is enormous suffering going on right now because of acute malnutrition, but we know that this is going to be a permanent condition faced by these children.
نعم، في هذه الحالة هل يمكن أن تضعنا في تفاصيل عمل منظمات الأمم المتحدة؟ ما هي الأولويات؟ كيف تنظمون اليوم احتياجات هؤلاء اللاجئين في المخيمات وخارج المخيمات أيضا على طريق اللجوء وفي رخين في ميانمار؟
Well, the world is distracted by a number of catastrophes around the world. And so the Rohingya are a forgotten people. And the people in Myanmar have been forgotten. So with respect to the Rohingya, I mean, there are plans in place. There's facilities and there's budgets and there's programs to provide support for the Rohingya, but it's inadequate, and it's grossly inadequate. And the funding levels for these necessary programs are only a fraction are being funded. So as a result, people are suffering, children are suffering, and that suffering is only going to continue as long as this crisis continues to be neglected and forgotten.
سيد توم، ذكرت في بداية هذه المقابلة أن بنغلاديش تستضيف أعدادا كبيرة من اللاجئين الروهينغا وهناك حاجة إلى التضامن الدولي مع هذه الدولة. برأيك هل يمكن أن يتم أو تتم الاستجابة لهذا النداء من قبل المجتمع الدولي أم سيتم التغاضي عن هذا الأمر؟
I'm not hopeful, to be perfectly honest with you. We've seen there's been a very disappointing response in the past. There has been just inadequate funding resources provided to the Rohingya. And remember, the Rohingya did not go to Bangladesh because they wanted to. They're not in these camps because they want to be in these camps. They're in these camps because they have to. They fled a genocide. The conditions were just horrific. I've spoken to Rohingya people there in Bangladesh in these camps, and the stories that they tell about escaping these genocidal attacks are just absolutely horrific. And conditions in Rakhine State in their homes right now are horrific. So they're between a rock and a hard place. They are, and there in Bangladesh they have inadequate support. They're unable to earn a living. They're not allowed to earn a living, and conditions, generally speaking, are very, very harsh. So just imagine if you're in a camp and you can't earn food for your family, and the food that's available for charity is inadequate. Just imagine those conditions, and you're there because your family was attacked in a genocide. It's unfathomable what the people of the Rohingya people are facing. And on top of that, because of these conditions, as you can imagine, violence has been increasing in these camps. So not only are you facing all these hardships because your family doesn't have enough to eat, your children are not getting a decent education, you can't earn a living. Now you're facing violence there at the camp. So it's a horrible situation, and I'm afraid it's only going to get worse because the international community is not providing the kind of attention and resources that are necessary to care for people that are in these desperate situations. And we have failed as an international community to address the root causes of this. The horrible situation in Myanmar, those forces that committed genocide against the Rohingya people are committing unspeakable violence right now in Rakhine State in their homes. it is unconscionable that the international community is not doing more to address this crisis.
دعني أنتقل وإياك إلى مشكلة أخرى يتعرض لها اللاجئون الروهينغا في مخيمات بنغلاديش تحديدا. هناك العديد منهم يسعون للهجرة غير الشرعية إلى ماليزيا وإلى إندونيسيا ودول أخرى. يتلاعب بهم المتاجرون أو المتاجرون بالبشر ويحتجزونهم مقابل المال والفدية، وكثير منهم تعرضوا للقتل والعنف والاغتصاب. كمقرر أممي، ما هي المعلومات التي بحوزتكم بشأن هذا الملف؟
Yes, I know that thousands of Rohingya, very desperate Rohingya, are leaving on Bangladesh on boats, very unseaworthy boats. Some putting their fates into the hands of smugglers that they pay significant amounts of money for. Some are being trafficked by unscrupulous human traffickers. It is a horrible situation. Now, what we know is that in 2023, there were over 4,500 of these boats going out to people going out to sea in these boats. 4,500. And we know that that is a 66% increase over the number of people escaping the year before. So the trend is very disturbing. And of course, it mirrors the trend of the decline of support for people in these camps. So the decline continues. Conditions in these camps continue to worsen. And so it should not come as no surprise that the number of people going onto these boats with their families, and remember, this is, we're talking about majority, 2/3 of those entering these boats are women and children, 2/3. We know that as of the latest information that I've seen, several hundred drowned or were lost at sea. Over 560 that we know of were lost at sea last year. So it's just horrific. I was in Indonesia last year. I went to the areas where refugees had found their safety. They were among the lucky ones, but they described just horrific conditions in these boats, violence in these boats. One described how a boat full of fellow Rohingya were given one onion to share among all of the people on the boats. People were attacked, people died. They described having to throw dead bodies overboard. Horrific conditions. But you can understand the desperation that people are facing and the desperation that puts them onto these boats, these women and children onto these boats, because they feel that there's no alternative to the conditions that they're facing in these camps. And there was no alternative to get into those camps because of the genocidal attacks in Myanmar. I mean, it's just impossible to imagine the human suffering that is happening before the distracted eyes of the international community.
سيد توم، طبعا إرم نيوز كما ذكرنا دخلت إلى هذا المخيم والتقت أيضا عائلات هؤلاء الضحايا الذين ربما الكثير منهم ما زال في عداد المفقودين. برأيك كيف يمكن للسلطات ربما في بنغلاديش، أنتم كمنظمة أممية، مواجهة هؤلاء المتاجرين أو المهربين الذين يعملون على إقناع اللاجئين بالهروب إلى ماليزيا أو إلى إندونيسيا؟ كيف يمكن العمل لحل هذا الأمر؟
I've been calling for a coordinated response among those nations, those navies, law enforcement in the region. I don't see the kind of response in terms of law enforcement and even rescue, search and rescue, that is necessary to save the lives of these people and to bring justice to those who are victims of trafficking. I mean, you just think about some of these young women, young girls who are being trafficked. They need care, they need support, they need justice. and they're not getting any of that to the degree that is necessary.
أخيرا سيد توم أندروز، رسالتك عبر إرم نيوز إلى المجتمع الدولي، ما هي هذه الرسالة التي ربما تكون مؤثرة أو ربما يتفاعل معها المجتمع الدولي لمساعدة هؤلاء اللاجئين؟
Well, to Aram News, I just want to say thank you for putting some attention on this crisis. It's extremely important that the world know what's going on, and it's because of podcasts that are putting attention onto this, news services such as yours that are generating attention to this, that there's hope that there could be action, because you can't solve a problem that you can't see. And the problem right now is that very few people see this crisis. They don't understand the stakes here. They don't understand the living hell that people are going through. And so we need to do everything possible, and it's because of you and Wasam and this opportunity to speak to your audience that perhaps we're going to be able to generate greater attention. But we need to pay attention, and then we need to take action, because lives, innocent lives, are at stake.
سيد توم أندروز، المقرر الأممي المعني بشؤون اللاجئين الروهينغا، كنت معنا من فيرجينيا. شكرا جزيلا لك على هذا اللقاء الخاص.
Thanks for shining light on this. I appreciate it.